let's get into a Soul Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. A lot of people don't know, and I'm one of them, that a lot like Antarctica, the Grand Canyon is very similar in the sense of you can't just go wherever you want. And I know there's going to be people in the comment section, just like when I talked about Antarctica, they're going to be like, you actually can go wherever you want, actually. And anywhere you can't go, it's through your best safety, okay? That they're worried about you. And yeah, okay, nerd. Anyway, apparently you can't just go around anywhere in the Grand Canyon. There's certain places that are cut off. And it makes me wonder, I've always wondered this, because every place has their pyramids. Mexico, South America, Africa, the Middle East, Europe, they all have their pyramids. They all have their special places. Their very old drawings, hieroglyph type stuff. They all have their stuff. Monuments set up, all that great stuff. Every place except for America, except for North America. Canada and America don't really have anything. But then in comes the Grand Canyon. And when you really start to learn about the Grand Canyon, you learn that that is probably where America's specialness, we'll call it, really lies. And there's another place as well that I'll bring up later, the Serpent Head that's at a golf course, but we'll talk about that a little bit after. But the Grand Canyon is a very interesting place. You cannot just explore this place. As a free American who's born on American soil, you cannot just roam through this part of America and see what's what and see what it all looks like. You can't do that. I find that so interesting. What I find even more interesting, is what happens to the people who try to just explore and how quickly all of that happens. If you don't know, there's a lot of black helicopters that come out of nowhere, okay? And they're dropping gay frogs on you. But black helicopters, no joke, will appear. Now, let's get into the meat of this episode and learn a little bit about this. I'm going to show you 2 clips afterwards from AJ himself explaining exactly what happens to people who try to explore the Grand Canyon. And I'm going to give you a little peek into what I think the Grand Canyon is similar to. I think there's some similarities between the Grand Canyon, ancient Egypt, and India, if you'd believe that. But let's get into this first. I have it on almost triple speed, so I'm going to slow it down for you guys. Let's go.
The Smithsonian.
Oh, that was G.E. Kincaid and the Smithsonian cover-up.
Yeah.
The Grand Canyon. That's a good story.
Well, the whole Grand Canyon thing is bananas. Like, there's areas of the Grand Canyon you cannot explore.
You cannot go. You cannot fly over.
Right.
And you can't fly under the rim. Yet when you go to those bad places, suddenly a white plane flies over under the rim, black helicopters show up. I showed it on my episode. I show the black helicopters showing up. Like, they do show.
Yeah. Like, they are protecting something.
Something.
It's not as simple as this is a dangerous area, because you can go to any dangerous area.
You go just to the normal tourist area. It's like, be careful. People fall. 2 people a year fall.
Yeah. Someone fell recently.
They did?
Yeah, an influencer. Of course, taking a selfie. But the Grand Canyon, there's been these crazy stories of people finding these these caverns with like Egyptian artwork and hieroglyphics and these stories of artifacts that have been removed from there.
So the story is, it shows up, I believe, in like the Phoenix Gazette. It's 1903 or so. And the explorer is G.E. Kincaid, and he's going down, he's looking for gold deposits or whatever. This is just before Teddy Roosevelt made the Grand Canyon a preserve. He was a naturalist. So he finds these steps that are clearly man-made. He follows the steps up, and there's a cave, and he goes in there, and he describes hieroglyphics that look Egyptian but are not quite. He finds a statue that he describes as like Buddha-like, not Egyptian, not human, but sort of like Buddha. And all these weapons, shields, gold, all sorts of stuff. He keeps going. He finds a deserted city in the caves, and all these tunnels and caverns go everywhere, and he's trying to map everything. He comes out, and he goes back to town, and he gathers together a group that we're going to go find the stuff again. And people are excited about it. And a couple of weeks go by, and everyone's gathered to go on the expedition. He never shows. The expedition goes nowhere, and that's really the last we've heard of it.
Really? And is there any photographs or anything? No.
There never is of this stuff.
Right. Just descriptions?
Just a great story.
Well, the great part of the story is the fact that you actually can't go there. And the idea that there's an area where the military is protecting people from being foolish, that doesn't make any sense.
Nobody asks why.
Right.
Like, nobody asks why. It really bothers me about that story and all of these, whether it's disclosure or whatever. I don't hear anyone asking why. Well, they won't let us. Well, who's they?
Right.
Someone's in charge of stuff that's not the president.
Right.
Or Congress. So who is it? So,
is it possible there's some sort of a government installation down there somewhere?
It's all going to be woo-woo conspiracy stuff, or it's real, or G.E. Kincaid found something and someone got to him.
But if G.E. Kincaid found something, why would they want to hide some ancient civilization discovery, particularly in the early 1900s? Like, why? For what reason?
I don't know why Graham Hancock is marginalized now.
Right, but that wouldn't you think that there's like less of a grip on that stuff in the 1900s,
Yes.
early 1900s?
I would think so.
Yeah.
So my guess would be treasure and money. That would be my guess. Is it shows up in the paper, the government goes down there like, there's a lot of stuff down here. Let's grab it, send it to the Smithsonian, who keeps 99% of the stuff under wraps. They have a billion items that nobody can see, and then that's the end of it.
Yeah, but what the? Which I would love to know the official reason. See if you can Google. Is there an official reason why you're not allowed to go to certain areas of the Grand Canyon?
They use a VPN there, brother.
The story, I was looking at an article about the original article, and it says that the two guys mentioned might not have even existed.
Right.
There's no evidence of them.
G.E. Kincaid?
And
Right.
another guy named S.A. Jordan.
Oh, so it might be just a story that someone printed? Some horseshit?
Yeah, when I was looking into one of these things before, I found something explaining that back in the early 1900s, when newspapers were a really popular thing to read, I don't know if it was like a game or if there was actual prizes people would play or like amongst themselves to try to get fake stories printed. If you could get the craziest story printed, you win like $500 or.
I might.
You can't get Jamie to say 2 sentences about nothing, but when it comes to debunking some stuff, you know what I mean? You guys know what I mean. You watch the show like I watch the show. When it comes to debunking some stuff, to just destroying the fun, just derailing the story, all of a sudden, Jamie's got novels to say out of nowhere. You never hear this guy say nothing. You hear a little, you hear that every once in a while. That's it. But then all of a sudden, when it comes to debunking some stuff that the military's trying to keep under wraps, all of a sudden, old controlled opposition raises his hand. Oh man, I love it. I love it. You know I love JB.
I'd be wrong, but I think Jordan was connected to the Smithsonian, at least according to the story.
I pulled this from the Smithsonian debunk, which, I mean, obviously they would if this is the way we're going to go with it, but them debunking this, and they gave 2 links, one to the original 1909 article and one to a 2008 update, and that's where I was pulling that from.
I don't trust the Smithsonian. They're exempt from all kinds of stuff.
Yeah?
Well, like there's a law passed not too long ago that if you have Native American artifacts that are important to that culture, especially burial artifacts, they must be returned. Unless you're the Smithsonian, then
They're allowed to hold on to
then
them?
you can make a case that you don't have to give it back.
How do they have so much power?
It's a government agency.
The Smithsonian is a government. Oh, I didn't even know. I thought it was a private agency. So there's no official story as to why this area of the Grand Canyon is off limits.
For your safety.
The
is all
Forbidden Zone, they call it.
Yeah, that's all I can find.
That's
I'm looking
fucking
into
weird.
that.
That's weird. That this story comes from the very area that's forbidden. That's weird.
I think
What are the odds?
I don't believe in coincidences, so a lot of these stories come from places you just can't go.
Has anybody tried to hike in?
All the time.
Wear
Or
camo?
raft in
Yeah, did they get busted?
and busted, yeah, and arrested.
Really?
You could find online, I wish I knew the names of a team that went up there. That's who found the black helicopters, and I use them in the video. And I credit them, so you can find their videos. They're up there for an hour and a half. trying to find stuff. And what they found up in that forbidden zone is anchored into the ground a giant hook,
Right.
or like a loop.
Yeah,
Like
I
what
saw
would
that.
you use that for? And that would be to rappel down. That's the only reason that it would be there. There's no explanation for what is this. They also found artifacts from that era, from the early 1900s, artifacts that people were there. So it's possible that they rappelled that, like they might have been standing right above that entrance. And there are reverse angles of that rock face that look a little weird. It could be pareidolia, but
What's pareidolia?
pareidolia is the mind's ability to see objects in random noise. You know, it's something we evolved to, to see predators in the forest. That's why if you see a cloud that looks like a Abraham Lincoln,
Right.
it's not Abraham Lincoln. It's pareidolia. But debunkers will always fall on pareidolia. So like the real believers, they hate that word.
God, that would be. Imagine everything would have to be rewritten. If they found some evidence of a lost civilization with no connection to any known civilization that was advanced, that was living in the Grand Canyon.
Did you ever think about going
To the Grand Canyon?
to go and just be an outlaw and go see?
How would you get in, though? I mean, if they have black helicopters and they're scanning the sky or scanning the ground with some sort of a drone or a plane.
We go in, we live.
Are you planning something?
No, hold on.
What
no.
should we do?
I don't have.
I'm in.
I don't have a contract. All right. So this is it's already dangerous me sitting here, but I got your back.
If I go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even if they drag you out, questions have to be posed.
Right. Why couldn't I go there?
What did he do wrong? Well, he violated this area. Okay. Well, how come?
Yeah. Well, when you think about how dangerous the Grand Canyon.
I love that he's trying to convince Joe to do it. He's not going to do it, but he's like, I got your back. Hey, listen, it'll be great. Just go and check it out. They gotta answer some questions. How great would that be if Joe Rogan did that? Why can't I be here? I don't understand. I don't get it. Why can't I be here? I'm here with my friend Elon. Can you call my friend Donald? It's President Trump. Can you call him? I don't understand. I should be able to go inside that cave. I want to see the artifacts.
Canyon is overall. There's not a safe area. It's literally a canyon. You could fall at any of a million spots along the way to your death.
Have you been there?
Yes.
It's
Incredible.
Incredible. You couldn't paint a better picture. But as you get closer to that edge, you can feel your amygdala going, back up.
Yeah.
Like it's seriously dangerous.
Yeah. God, the problem is I want to believe. With
Same.
all these things. Same. Most people that enjoy your show. We want to believe. That's why it's so fun.
And I don't believe in most of the stuff I talk about. But when I approach a story, I try to find as much evidence as I can to support it. And I also want to find the other side. So that what we're left with is some truth. And not all stories can be fully debunked. And I've had my mind flipped a couple of times. Crop circles, hollow moons, and really crazy shit have flipped me around.
Crop circles is a weird one.
So weird.
It's a weird one because when I first...
Crop circles. That's an old school one. That's like the OG of tinfoil. That's the OG crop circles. You'd see pictures back in the day and you'd be like, come on, what is that? Who could have done that? But then when you actually look into it, you're like, oh, this is crazy. There's no way. Who could have done this, possibly? Now, I just want to show you this really quickly. This is very odd about the Grand Canyon, or not the Grand Canyon itself, the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian Institution is not a traditional federal agency or department, but rather an independent trust instrumentality of the United States government, established by an act of Congress on August 10th, 1846. It operates to fulfill the bequest of James Smithson to found at Washington under the name of the Smithsonian an establishment for the increase and diffusion of knowledge among men. I thought it was just a museum. Am I the only one? I thought this was just a museum. This seems to be way more than that. I mean, that even just what I just read, that sounded like ritualistic. That sounded deep. Congress vested the governance of the Smithsonian in a board of regents, which include the Vice President of the United States, the Chief of Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, members of Congress, and several members of the public. This board meets at least 4 times each year? What? The Vice President. So JD knows about the Smithsonian. Oh, man. That's why the Pope died as soon as JD touched his hand, you know? JD has powers now. He's been to the Smithsonian. He has all sorts of things on him now. While the Smithsonian is closely connected to the federal government, it does not exercise regulatory powers and is not considered an agency or authority of the government as defined in certain laws applicable to the executive branch agencies. Wow, that is interesting. Annual revenue is $1.2 billion. Approximately 2/3 coming from annual federal appropriations. What? Wow. Man, someone needs to let Trump know about this. Trump will be all over this. Cut the Smithsonian, okay? They thought they got under the radar. The Smithsonian, it's just a bunch of junk inside some place. And they want $1 billion. So I said, no more $1 billion, okay? I said, you'll get $500,000. I mean, to keep junk. I mean, this is basically a storage room, okay? I'm not doing this anymore. They've taken almost $1 trillion since their conception. This is too much. Oh, man. Someone tell them immediately. It's crazy. I didn't know that about the Smithsonian. The Grand Canyon. This is a whole thing, like talking about understanding the forbidden zones. So this article here is basically one of those articles where it's like debunking. It's like, hey, this is just a theory, and this is a hoax, and it's been debunked, and it's the forbidden zones are just a term used by national park services. Instead, the term has gained traction in popular culture and among certain conspiracy theorists. It often refers to areas within the Grand Canyon that are off limits to the general public. They're usually off limits for reasons of safety, tribal land rights, ecological and archaeological preservation. Here's the thing that really throws me off. Tribal land rights. So you telling me there's some tribes that can go where no one else can go? But the reason that we can't go is because our safety? But they can go because tribal land rights? Huh? Am I understanding that right? So they can go to where it's unsafe and they could possibly die, but we can't go there because it's unsafe and we could possibly die. But it's safe for them because tribal land rights. And it's not safe for us because we don't have the tribal land rights. That's interesting. It sounds like a bunch of bull to me. I got to be honest. I mean, I'm like Rogan. I want to believe. But at the same time, they're making it very easy to believe. You're going to tell me that people can get dye injected into their eyeballs. They can get their tongue split. You're telling me people can jump? I saw a video of a guy that jumped out of a plane with no parachute and just depended on the other people to come and grab him who had parachutes on. I saw a girl who was hang gliding, I believe, or parasailing, and she jumped out of the harness and had this long, just some long cloth, and she started hanging from it and doing all sorts of tricks and had her legs and doing all sorts of stuff. You're telling me we can do all these things. You can pay somebody to drive a Lamborghini at you as fast as you can, and you can jump it if you'd like. No problem. But you can't go to the Grand Canyon because it's unsafe. That doesn't check out for me. There's too many things that you're allowed to do that are so unsafe. You kidding me? This is the thing that's unsafe. Here, I'll play a couple of clips here just talking about what they found and whatnot.
Over 100 feet from the entrance is the cross hall, several hundred feet long, in which are found the idol or image of the people's god, sitting cross-legged with a lotus flower or lily in each hand. The cast of this face is oriental, and the carving in this cavern. The idol almost resembles Buddha, though the scientists are not certain as to what religious worship it represents. Taking into consideration everything found thus far, it is possible that this worship most resembles the ancient people of Tibet.
No, I didn't think we were allowed to say Oriental. Are we bringing that back?
We're not. This was written over 100 years ago. So.
Oh, right, when we had freedom of speech.
No, Oriental in this context just means Eastern.
Ah.
Because of this discovery, Kincaid's team started calling the complex the Citadel. The crypt was one of the bigger rooms discovered. Now, with enough light, Kincaid was able to fully describe what he saw.
The walls slant back at an angle of about 35 degrees. On these are tiers of mummies, each one occupying a separate hewn shelf. At the head of each is a small bench, on which is found copper cups and pieces of broken swords. Some of the mummies are covered with clay, and all are wrapped in a bark fabric. The urns or cups on the lower tiers are crude, while as the higher shelves are reached, the urns are finer in design, showing a later stage of civilization. It is worthy of note that all the mummies examined so far have proved to be male, no children or females being buried here. This leads to the belief that this exterior section was the warriors' barracks.
Kincaid, Jordan, and the Smithsonian team explored the entire cave complex.
How's this guy verifying mummies, you know? Isn't that the worst? That's what, imagine the guys who had to do that. You're cursed for life. No wonder this guy didn't show up again after. You're cursed for life. You go into a room filled with mummies and the first thing you do is rip apart the crotch area and see what this mummy has going on. That's the first thing you do. You're cursed. You're cursed. That's it. That's it. Final destination time. It's whatever. Something's happening to you. And you did it with a bunch of them. You're just walking up to mummies and just, yeah, that's a guy. That's a man, for God's sakes. Yeah. What? Can't be doing that. Can't be doing that.
They were overwhelmed with evidence that this was not some faraway temple occupied by a few priests. This was a huge city lived in by thousands of men, women, and children for hundreds or possibly thousands of years. The question nobody could answer was, who were they?
So, you know what this reminds me of as he's explaining this? It reminds me of this. This is India. So it's like the Grand Canyon, they're saying what's said. Legend has it, because they won't let us go and see if it's actual legend or fact. Legend has it that they have things that are similar to this. It reminds me of this. You're going inside. There's some kind of city. A bunch of people were living there. It reminds me, and I didn't even know this picture is going to pop up. Very much like the description that was in the Grand Canyon. This is India. What you're seeing right now, this is not a hall. This is not a church. This is not a temple. Well, it could be a temple, but you're not seeing a building. What you're seeing is all of this is carved out of one rock. They went into a cave, something like the Grand Canyon, and they carved all this out in India. So it seems like ancient Egyptians had this fantastic ability. We're seeing people in India at some point, obviously ancient Indians who have left zero trace whatsoever, because it's obviously not the people who are there today. There's zero trace, but they were able to do this at some point. And now, thinking that there's nothing in America that's like that, apparently in the Grand Canyon, there's something similar to that. And it's funny because it's like it kind of looks Egyptian. Well, there was Egyptians, and it kind of looks like Buddha, but it's a little. It seems like there's this ancient civilization. I'm not even going to say a bunch of ancient civilizations. It could have been one civilization, and they all seem to have. They're pretty much connected around. They all build pyramids. They're all building things into rock. They all have hieroglyphs. You know, it kind of looks Egyptian, but then it's over here, it looks a little different. And over here, it seems like there was this whole big connection of this society that had this advanced technology to do this. I mean, look at this. Look at the columns. Look at that. Look at the spacing. Are you kidding me? Then look at where this guy's sitting. Look at that. Can I zoom? We gotta zoom. We gotta zoom in. Look at that. Are you joking right now? With how this looks? Look how crazy that looks. Look at that. Again, one piece. One piece. Let me zoom out a little bit so you can get a better understanding of that. One piece. That is one piece. Even this, one piece. Look at the detailing in there. Zoom in. Go ahead, zoom in on that. Then that part comes up. Why are you doing that to me? Get out of here. Hide citation. Oh, it went away. Oh no. Moments like that make me feel so old. I'm like, where did it go? I gotta go call my wife from upstairs. But look at this. Look at this. Again, zoom in a little bit. Check that out. And now we're hearing that possibly the Grand Canyon had something similar. Possibly in a place that looks like this, there could be something similar. I don't think that's that out of the ordinary. I don't think it sounds that crazy that in a place this vast, this beautiful, that there was possibly, with water, that possibly there could have been vegetation at some point, or not, or just people digging into these mountains and making some kind of home / temple / monument for themselves. I don't find that crazy. And I don't really get why people do. It seems, from what we see around the world, it's kind of what people do. They kind of get into things. Look at that. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Right? Anyway, let's hear what he has to say about what happens to people when they try to get into into the Grand Canyon.
Or just to protect his find, it was clear that Kincaid wanted to dissuade people from finding the citadel. But even over 100 years later, that wouldn't stop people from trying. And some of those people, they say they found it. Jerry Wills and his wife Kathy have been studying the Kincaid Cave mystery for years. Their approach was find the original base camp of the explorers, which would lead them to the cave. After years of research and exploring the area where G.E. Kincaid said he found the cave, Jerry and Kathy found a location covered in artifacts from that time. And on the canyon wall just below this area, they believe is the entrance to the underground city. Exploring is difficult though. The entire area where the cave is supposed to be is designated off-limits by the federal government.
Yo, I saw that coming.
About 1,000 caves have been discovered in the Grand Canyon, many of them man-made, but only about 30 have been mapped, and many of those have been sealed.
Ooh, I close them off.
Oh, for your safety.
Oh, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, I don't buy the safety excuse either. There are plenty of people who'd be willing to take the risk, and they'd be willing to sign a waiver that says the government isn't responsible if something happens. In fact, people have tried this. The government still says no, it's too dangerous.
How nice of the government to look out for us.
Isn't that nice? Then why is it legal to jump out of a plane or ride a roller coaster or drive a car? Some things in life are dangerous, but they're still worth doing. Some other caves in the Grand Canyon have been blocked by steel gates. They say this is to protect the bat population.
Whoa, did you say bats? We have to protect the bats?
That's what they say.
Well, haven't bats caused enough problems these last few years? Allegedly.
Still, people are willing to risk a fine or imprisonment to find the lost city in the Grand Canyon. But anyone who goes looking should expect a response. When Jerry and Kathy's team tried to explore the area, suddenly an unmarked plane appeared. Clearly, they were being watched. Despite this part of the Grand Canyon being a no-fly zone, and the fact that no aircraft is allowed to fly below the rim, a plane appeared. Jerry Wills is convinced this was a warning. His team was unable to continue their expedition. Exploring the cave from above is almost impossible. But what about exploring it from below, as G.E. Kincaid did? Another group of explorers tried this. As they approached the location, a black helicopter showed up. Not a tourist helicopter, not even a black civilian helicopter, an Apache combat helicopter. When this team explored the area above, looking for the ventilation shafts Kincaid wrote about, and possibly a way down, they found cement blocks in the middle of nowhere. Some of these blocks are platforms near the edge of the rim with hardware and anchors that would be used to assist mountaineers. When asked about this, The authorities say these are reinforcing structures to prevent rockfalls. Also in this forbidden zone, rock formations have unusual names. There's Isis Temple, Tower of Set, Horus, the Cheops Pyramid, and Ra. There's also the Manu Temple, the Buddha Temple, the Krishna Temple, and the Shiva Temple, and many more names that refer to ancient Egyptian and Hindu cultures, cultures that specifically have myths about a god helping civilization after the Great Flood. The official word is, the fact that these names exist within the Grand Canyon's no-go zone is a coincidence. But I don't really believe in those. Do you?
I do not. If you don't know about the Y-Files, it's an incredible channel, absolutely amazing stuff. And just look at that, sealed by actual metal bars, so you can't go inside. There's something that they're obviously hiding in there. That is beyond doing that for people's safety. That's making sure that people cannot venture inside and see something that they're not supposed to see. I mean, this is the description and what you're seeing there. That's on the level of like Area 51. I mean, that's just what's going on there. And, you know, at the end of the day, as upset as I am about not being able to go in, it's still so fun. Oh, it's amazing. And then the names of all the places, these Egyptian names and everything, I'm telling you, there's some connection between all the ancient civilizations. They were connected the same way that we're connected, the same way that we find ourselves hyper-connected to everyone around the world. They were also connected in some kind of way by some kind of mode of technology that we couldn't possibly comprehend. And I think it might have been by the pyramids. Maybe even some of it would have been by meditation and you know, activating that part of yourself, that telepathic part of yourself. But I think there was something. There was definitely something. But you guys let me know what you think about all this. Even you nerds who are going to be like, actually, it's just because the stone's slippery, you can hurt yourself. You guys can sound off in the comments too. Anyway, I'm out.